It was the early 1900s in a small town called Ellisburg, located in central Pennsylvania. A young man by the name of Henry Knoebel, who owned his own lumber and sawmill business at the time, also farmed the land which his family lived on. Running through the middle of his property was Roaring Creek, which attracted the locals, and they would go swimming and have picnics and whatnot on his property. So instead of being a bag and telling them, "Hey, get off my land," this intelligent young man started selling them ice cream and providing them with drinks. And over time, it just slowly became known as Knoebels Grove and grew in popularity. So many people wanted to go, he started leasing plots of his land where people would build cottages along the creek. Henry started doing the same. He built his own cottages and just rented them out to whoever wanted to stay. By 1926, Knoebels Grove grew quite large in popularity, and Henry, clearly having an entrepreneurial spirit, opened a restaurant, leased a carousel, opened some games, and built a huge concrete swimming pool known as the Crystal Pool. And on July 4th of that year, Knoebels Grove was officially an amusement park. Now that the park was officially up and going, it was only logical to expand. And in 1930, the Lindy Loop, the Whip, and the Kiddie Plane were all simultaneously added to the park. 2 years later, the park continued to grow with the addition of an arcade and a skating rink. 1934 saw the addition of Stony Gables, a beautiful stone-built house. Originally, it was used as one of the cottages. Today, it sells Knoebels homemade fudge and other various sweets. 6 years later, in 1940, Knoebels got its first train, the Nickel Plate Railroad. 1942 saw the most iconic addition added to the park, the Grand Carousel, a 100-plus-year-old attraction that still has the brass rings where you can reach out and grab yourself a free ride. Still operates in that fashion to this day. Sadly, 2 years later, the park temporarily closed as World War II was in full bloom and the whole country was rocked. It didn't take long again to reopen, though, and in 1947, the addition of the Playland Arcade and the Scooters bumper cars were added to the park. Over the course of the next 15 years, the park added more attractions. The very first Ferris wheel, a petting zoo, the satellite, the high-speed thrill coaster, hand cars, motorboats. By 1960, the Nickel Plate Railroad was removed from the park, and to compensate for the loss, Knoebels added two different train attractions, the Old Smoky Train and the Pioneer Train, both still in operation to this day. 1963 saw the addition of more lodging options to the park, as the Knoebels Campground opened with only 6 sites. Now, the campground boasts 550 plus 57 log cabins. The following year saw the addition of 2 more attractions, the iconic Sky Slide and Flying Cages. I watched a video of what the Flying Cages was, and it looks like a crazy ride. 1967 saw the addition of a mini golf course. 3 years after that, the addition of a paratrooper and the Spacewalk, which was basically an inflatable bounce house. 1972 tragedy struck the park as the aftermath of Hurricane Agnes hit, destroying 6 cottages and damaging 24 rides. It's the highest watermark the park has ever seen. But Knoebels being Knoebels bounced back very quickly. And not to be outdone by that little Agnes, the following year, they built one of their most iconic rides, the Haunted Mansion, an award-winning dark ride that still thrills guests to this day. Mother Nature threw an uppercut right back at him, and in 1975, a second flood occurred. This one not as bad as the Agnes flood, still some minor damages. 1977 saw the first major coaster added to the park, a Schwarzkopf Jetstar model, appropriately called the Jetstar. 1981 saw the park change its name from Knoebels Grove to Knoebels Amusement Resort. Also that same year saw the debut of the Covered Bridge Festival, which is basically an arts and crafts show with food options and different vendors available. It's quite popular and still going on to this day. 4 years later, in 1985, the park made its single biggest and significant addition in its history, when they purchased the Rocket from a defunct theme park in San Antonio, Texas called Playland. It just sat rotting there for 5 years. There were no blueprints available for the ride at all, so what Knoebels did was number each and every individual piece of wood on that ride, hauled it to their park, and reconstructed it. And what that ride is the Phoenix, a very highly regarded and easily one of the most legendary roller coasters, wood or steel, ever built. 2 years later, in 1987, Cosmo officially became the park's mascot. 1992 saw the removal of the Jetstar coaster, and that was sent to my guys in New Jersey out to Maurice Piers. But that was to make way for a new roller coaster. The Whirlwind opened in 1993, a Vekoma MK1200 Whirlwind model. We all know those late 80s, early 90s Vekoma roller coasters with those horrendous over-the-shoulder restraints. They just weren't very good at that time, and they really sucked, just being honest. 1994 saw the addition of the Giant Wheel, a 110-foot tall, huge Ferris wheel that gives absolutely stunning views of the whole park. 1997 was a semi-significant year to the park, as they added Skloosh, a shoot-the-chutes ride with a bad name, and they also purchased Lake Glory Campground, which was nearby, so they doubled their campground size in one purchase. F***ing brilliant. 1999 saw Knoebels take on one of their most ambitious projects up to that point, building an in-house coaster all by themselves. What they came up with was Twister, a 101-foot tall wood coaster that packs quite a punch. 2001 was the park's 75th anniversary, and to celebrate the occasion, they opened a history museum within the park. 2004 saw the removal of the Whirlwind, which probably didn't disappoint anyone. 2005 saw 2 new rides added to the park, the return of the classic Looper and Fandango, one of those Sidewinder Frisbee models that are a lot of fun. 2006 saw Mother Nature come out of nowhere and flood the park. 90% of the park was underwater. Still wasn't as bad as the 72 flood. 2007 saw Knoebels Amusement Resort continue to grow with the purchase of Three Ponds Golf Course nearby. 2009 saw the addition of the kiddie coaster Cosmos Curves. In 2011, Mother Nature comes back again and hits the park with the worst flood it has seen since the 72 flood. This thing was deep. But, again, Knoebels being Knoebels, they went ahead with their 2011 plans anyway, when they bought the Golden Nugget from defunct Dinosaur Beach in Wildwood, New Jersey. They brought it to Knoebels and opened it as Black Diamond, an indoor dark ride roller coaster hybrid. 2013 saw the addition of 2 new attractions, the Stratosphere, one of those Larson drop towers, which I prefer over the Intimate drop towers, might be in the minority, and also Flying Turns, an in-house built wood bobsled coaster, the one and only of its kind in the entire world. This thing took years and years and years to complete, but they finally came to life in 2013. 2 years later, in 2015, the park added Impulse, a Zaire custom-built steel coaster, and really, with the exception of the Jetstar, its first major steel coaster. 2016 was the park's 90th anniversary, and also saw the addition of the Nickel Plate Bar and Grill at the Three Ponds Golf Course, paying homage to the original train ride, the Nickel Plate Railroad, way back early in the park's history. Knoebels, America's largest free admission theme park. Free parking? How do they do it, people wonder? It's been passed down from generation to generation to generation, has never left the family. It continues to grow and thrive, like it always has. Knoebels. It truly is a one-of-a-kind place that everyone needs to visit at least once.